All right. Well, thanks, Stephen. I appreciate you being here with me today and being willing to do some of this interview. Uh, really excited to get to know you over the past couple of months and everything that you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me for talking for a few minutes. Hopefully, we can maybe learn something from each other, or help share things that might be useful to other financial planners or people curious learning more about careers in financial planning. And it's been really a joy to have you be one of the first few brave souls to join our firm here too. So I really appreciate your willingness to do that, and also your enthusiasm with it. You've been great to have here so far.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, you've got a lot of great experience, and I think your story is pretty unique. And I wanted to ask you, it's been a little bit different from running your own firm successfully and then kind of switching to this new platform that you're running where you're leading it for other planners. And this is kind of a two-part question. So what was the hardest part about being a financial planner? And then in that transition, what's been the hardest part of now running a platform to help other financial planners?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is probably the same on both sides there. And it's just that there's an enormous amount of material to learn if you want to do it right. There are so many different things that we have to be on top of. So if you want to be a good financial planner, you need to be knowledgeable about everything from budgeting to investment management to insurance and estate planning and student loans and retirement planning and insurance and all these different topic areas. And all of them and many more are all multiple career fields in and of themselves that people dedicate their entire lives or careers or college degrees to. And you have to be at least a little bit competent in all of those areas if they're all going to be parts of your clients' financial lives. And it's just a whole lot of material. It can be really overwhelming. And if you care about doing what's right for your clients, then generally you're going to want to learn as much as you can about each of those. And unfortunately, I see a lot of young or mid-career financial planners sort of get paralyzed by that because they know they want to do what's right by clients and give competent advice, but they feel like they need to learn everything there is to learn before they're able to do that at all. And they sort of get seized up and are afraid to go get new clients. But oftentimes it's actually working with new people where you're going to learn the most instead of just reading another book or getting another designation, right? Those are important for sure, but actually working with clients on a day-to-day basis is where you're going to learn the most. And so I think that's one mistake that I made early on, and I see a lot of other people repeating too. And it's sort of similar now on this side. Not directly work with clients as much anymore, but trying to support financial advisors. Running a firm, regardless of the business model of that financial planning firm, there's a whole lot of stuff you need to know on that front too, right? There's everything related to compliance and marketing and putting together tech stacks and all these different topic areas. And same thing applies here too. I can try and talk to other people who are doing it. I can read books, I can watch videos, I can listen to podcasts, whatever. But ultimately, I'm going to learn the most by just diving in and doing it. And so
I think that's valuable because what I'm hearing you say is that whether it's getting started in the career, whether it's getting started with the platform as you're doing now, you don't have the chance to wait until you are this library of knowledge and you're just going to know it before you even begin. It's learned and accumulated through the process. You're a human, not a computer.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sort of reminds me of a concept that I learned in the military. It was called the 70% solution that maybe not all, but many Marines certainly learned. And the idea there is if you wait until you have perfect information and everything that you could possibly need to know in order to make the best decision about a certain situation, you're never going to get there. You're going to end up with paralysis analysis and the situation changes beneath you. You can never know everything about a big topic. And that becomes even more true if you're talking about a topic, the situation that is changing frequently. And so it doesn't mean that we just kind of bumble around aimlessly and just go without any thinking at all. I said 70% solution, not like 5% solution. So the idea is to come up with what's about 70%, what's most of what you need to know in order to make the best decision you can about a given situation. And then you got to act and respond as the situation changes, because you're never going to have 100% perfect information.
Right. Well, I think that's really great. That's valuable information. So that leads me to my next question. That's a big transition, coming out of the military, starting a successful financial practice, and then transitioning into a platform for other planners. Where you're at now, or maybe at each of those stages of your planning career, what has been your biggest payoff or your satisfaction point when working with people?
I think the most enjoyment or fulfillment, satisfaction that I ever had when working with clients as a financial planner is when we're far enough in working together that we get past that initial point where they're kind of questioning everything that I say and asking for tons of details, maybe because they don't trust that I'm really on their side yet, or they just don't trust that I'm competent and know what I'm talking about. And so in the beginning, when you work with a new client, it's natural. Most of them are going to ask a whole lot of questions until they really start to trust you. But then you get to a certain point and they're not asking follow-up questions anymore. They just ask, okay, tell me what I need to do. And your meetings sort of turn into like working meetings where you're doing stuff during your time together instead of trying to explain all your analysis or explain in detail why you think they should do what you think they should do. And you can just actually move on to getting it done during that time where you're together. And that's really fulfilling to know that you've sort of passed that point. And it's made me sort of appreciate too that I think I'm one of the good guys that actually tries to look out for clients, because it would be really easy to take advantage of them if you wanted to at that point. But there's also a little bit of a danger here when you get to that point with a client, which is that they stop thinking, or if it's a couple talking to each other about what's important to them in their life, and they're sort of letting you make life decisions for them. And I don't think that we should be doing that as financial planners. I think our role is to help them make more informed decisions about their lives, not just tell them what they should do. And so there's a little bit of a danger once you've built that trust too. You have to watch out for that and make sure they're still actively involved. This is about them in their life. You can't treat them like a spreadsheet.
Yeah, I think that's important, because when we're building trust, I think it's a little bit like dating, right? Like in the beginning, it's like, okay, we have that first date and, maybe there was a bit of an attraction and that's why we agreed to take this risk, even though we're very nervous about it. And then after a few dates or spending time, it's like, oh, we actually enjoy being with each other. Oh, I can trust you with a little bit more in my life. But the same way that you're describing too is if you're not careful in a relationship with a person that's not a good fit, you start to lose yourself a little bit, like that friend that kind of fell off the face of the map because they got into a new relationship and they shed every part of their personality or their life choices because of a new person they're attached to. And the same thing is true as a planner. Like, you don't want to be the reason that a couple is no longer talking to each other. You don't want to be the reason why they aren't still thinking about their life or the decisions or the goals that they have. I think that's really valuable. In terms of your own abilities, as you've expanded, grown, learned, what do you feel you do better than anyone else does?
Better than anyone else? Probably nothing, honestly.
It's a question loaded with hubris. So
Sure, yeah.
I understand
Probably
that.
nothing. What, 8 billion people in the world? I've never felt like I'm somebody who has this one thing that I'm just really amazing at. Like I'm the best piano player that I know, or the best communicator, or the best mathematician, or whatever. I've always felt like I'm moderately good at a lot of things. I think pretty much anything I set my mind to, if I just dedicate a little bit of time and effort to it, before long, I'm going to be kind of good at it. But I don't really think there's anything that I can be among the best people in the world at, no matter how much I work at it. I just don't think I'm built that way. And maybe one of my biggest strengths is just initiating action, just coming up with a good idea and being willing to start something that's a little bit harder or unusual. I've done that many times in my life. That seems to be something a lot of people have trouble with. But I feel like I'm one of those jack of all trades people, not all, jack of most trades people.
Okay, well, and that could be part of that military mindset. Jocko Willink talks about violence of action and being willing to be default aggressive, and so maybe that is part of what really helps you. Obviously, the stakes don't seem quite as high, right, as in combat, but here what you're doing is being willing to take action and start or create something and try, which can be the biggest setback for a lot of very smart and otherwise capable planners, but analysis paralysis can get them down.
Yeah, I think part of it is I've learned to trust my future self a little bit more, just as I've gotten a little bit older and been through more things in life. And I've realized that, you know what, future Steven is probably going to be able to handle this, and I'll do what I can to set him up for success, but don't need to stress about it too much. Sometimes the unknown can be a good thing.
That's really cool. I'm going to steal that. I think having faith in your future self is a big deal. I think that's really valuable. Let's talk about with your role now, if you could eliminate your least favorite parts of running the firm and only do your favorite part of what you do, what would it be?
Yeah, one thing I've always hated about being a financial planner that also did investment management stuff was just everything that goes into account administration. So account applications and ACATs and Roth conversions and all of that kind of stuff got really old after a while. Even using a modern custodian and the best tech that's available, which still isn't that great compared to the consumer side of things, as you know well. But even using good tech and really good, detailed, thoughtful processes, it's still just a giant hassle. So I'm kind of glad to be relieved of that now, being not in a client-facing role anymore, and also being in an advice-only firm. We don't have to deal with all that, which is pretty cool, because it's so much time and energy goes into that. Another thing sort of related would be just meeting notes. So that's a real pain. I don't think anybody really likes writing up notes to summarize in a message to the client afterward and figure out what action items do we have. Doing the action items usually isn't so bad. But just having to summarize it afterward and type that up, a lot of people spend a lot of time and energy on that, and I don't think anybody likes it. But that's not even unique to our field. I mean, doctors have to do that, therapists, so many other fields.
Attorneys,
attorneys has to. That's just
everybody's got to do it. There's going to be a fair amount of tedium no matter what we do, and I'm sure that's true in your case too. Even switching from client meetings to now working with advisors, I mean, myself included, we come to you with compliance questions and, hey, what about this or what about that? And I'm sure there's a lot of tedium involved there too. But you do bring up a really good point, which is in terms of some of that tedium, a lot of that is getting eliminated by AI tools, by technology solutions and other things, where before your only option out of that was to hire somebody to sit next to you and take diligent notes and do all of that. Tell me, what do you think is going to be different in a technology and an AI-driven world with the future of financial planning? What's that going to look like?
Yeah, a whole lot of changes, some of which are probably easily predictable and some of which nobody will ever see coming until it happens. That's the way these kinds of things seem to go. But one of the biggest changes, and we're already seeing this, is more specialization in the types of clients that we work with and in how we're designing our service models, right? So if you want to work with somebody who has I don't know, this very specific set of problems. I don't know, maybe it's like somebody who's in a caregiver situation, like you mentioned, Scott, earlier, and they have very different financial planning needs than most clients are going to. Those needs are significant, like a big impact on their lives, and they really need help with it. And they are unique compared to the needs of other people. So most financial planners aren't going to be well equipped to deal with the types of questions that those people are going to have, either like technically knowledge-based or just emotionally, and knowing how to have those types of conversations. It does take a different type of financial planner that is more specialized in it. And there are many, many client groups that's going to be true for. And so if we have good tech taking care of a lot of the administrative side of things, and if we have better base education, like a lot of financial planners are getting now, and if we have more people getting into this profession who are more into planning and advice roles than in sales roles oriented around products, those are among many factors, I think, that are contributing to our ability to become more specialized over time. And that's only going to be good for us and for clients. So that's probably the biggest change. And then maybe another one is kind of related, but more focus on the human element and our role as counselors instead of just technicians. Computers are quickly becoming better technicians than us.
Yeah.
And this trend has been happening for a long time, and I'm really happy to see it. Even if it sometimes leads to me feeling like an unqualified therapist, I think that this is a trend that needs to happen and is inevitably going to. And maybe one other thing that positive trend I see is we're getting greater ability to create access to financial planning services due to lower costs and evolving business models. So I think that's going to be a positive trend as well. But we still have a significant shortage of financial planners. We don't have nearly enough people getting into this field, which is a shame because it's a really amazing career field to be in.
It really is. And I think some people do sleep on it. When talking about technology, I do think that you make a really good point. I'm hearing you say that you see it as a removal of barriers to entry. And comparing it to music, you're a musician and so am I.
Well, it's a stretch to call me a musician. I think you're an actual musician. I just play around on the piano sometimes so I can do something fun with my daughter.
Sure. Well, what's funny about this is, it wasn't even that long ago where that transition to, digital ability to recreate a massive music studio. We think about the barriers to entry for someone that was going to make proper recordings of their music or sound, and that used to be multi-million-dollar studios, and to cover the cost of engineers and equipment and everything, that required a record label and big firms to really get that done most of the time. And now even as I look at the capability of stock apps on my MacBook and a $200 Logic subscription or something, and being able to see what can be done there and modeled digitally, it's completely removed those barriers to entry. And now we've got amazing creators doing things that you wouldn't have had access to. They wouldn't have been able to do unless they had kind of that approval, that big firm or big dollars behind them. And what I'm hearing you say is that it's going to be similar now, that we might start seeing a lot more independent advisors who have the proper tools behind them, instead of having to rely upon a really, really large firm with dozens and dozens of people doing everything behind the scenes to make it possible. So that would lead me to ask, in terms of advice only as a category and also as your brand, how do you see that growing in the future now that we have less of those barriers?
On the consumer side, it's very, very easy. Every consumer immediately understands like what it means to be advice only, and many of them want that.
Yeah.
It's so easy to explain to consumers, like, it's pretty straightforward, just like any other service. You want help, like, we just help you with this stuff, and then you pay us for it, and we both move on with our lives, and that's it. It's easy. And that way we don't have to deal with all the other complications around financial products and conflicts of interest, and broadening the scope beyond what it was you actually needed help with, and everything else. So the consumer side is really easy. The bigger challenge is convincing financial advisors of the feasibility of an advice-only model. And there's been big progress on that just over the last couple of years as well. And I think it's only going to accelerate. And I think most discussion around what it means to be an advice-only advisor, most has been around the ethics of it. Like, is this actually what's right for clients? Is this the only way to be a fiduciary, or the best way to look out for your clients? And I think that argument is more or less kind of settled. Most people tend to think that that is the better, even if still imperfect, approach. But for those who have been convinced of that or not, I think there's still much more progress to be made on showing the practical benefits of advice only as a business model, that it really can work. And so what I want to do over the next couple of years, as we're starting to grow this firm, is help demonstrate that that's true as well, because there really are a whole lot of significant practical business financial advantages to an advice only model that don't get enough attention, like the ethics side does. And that's going to convince a lot more advisors to come over, I think, because right now the attitude is sort of, okay, you guys want to do the right thing by clients, that's cute, and they pat you on the head and say, you go off and do what you're going to do. I want to be over here making money and being able to feed my family. And they don't really respect you for that. So that's what needs to change, and it's going to. And that we have a few examples we can look to for firms who have already been doing this for years. We're certainly not to try something like this, but I want to help accelerate that trend as well.
Yeah, I think it's important, because advice only is not a new category. We're working on an hourly basis, stripping away the need for taking custody or taking charge of someone's assets. That's not new. Lots of folks have done that, but I think it is an important conversation point. In my own opinion, and I'd love to hear your take, I feel like the consumer sentiment over the past couple of decades has really been a big loss of trust in financial advice in general. Lots of people are still using it, but I think there is kind of this same concern of, I'm overpaying for things. I think especially as marketing for low cost passive investing, or eliminating fees at every hazard. Tell me where you think advice only fits into that consumer sentiment to be able to meet and help people.
One way that I think consumers look at it is it's always helpful to consider analogies to other types of services that people are already used to buying and easily understand. So maybe consider, for example, let's say you have a leaky pipe in your house. And so you call a plumber and say, hey, I think I got a leak over here. Can you please check it out and fix the pipe? And then the plumber comes to your house and they says, oh yeah, sure enough, looks like you do have a leak there. So in order for me to fix this leak for you, first we're going to measure how many feet of pipe do you have across your entire house. It's, I don't know, 2,000 linear feet of pipe. So you're going to pay me an annual maintenance fee for reviewing all of those pipes on an annual basis and checking for additional leaks and then fixing them when they come up. And we're going to have this other coating that we apply to all the rest of your pipes. And you're going to pay me this many $1,000s every year. And then once we've done that, then we can see about fixing that leak that you have. And that's a really goofy thing for a plumber to say to us, right? We would just laugh around our house and say, dude, just fix the leak, please. But that's exactly what we do. When somebody comes to us with a financial question, maybe they want help with, I don't know, figuring out something related to their stock options or rental properties or employee benefits or disability insurance policy, whatever they come to us with because they have questions about it, they're feeling some kind of pain point. Many firms have models such that their only option is to say, okay, well, we can do financial planning for you, but we don't just do like hourly questions and help you with this thing. We only do comprehensive plans covering all these different topic areas. And the only way we work with people is if you have at least $1 million to invest, because that's our firm minimum, and we're going to handle your investment accounts for you and do all these things over the course of years. In the meantime, the client's just sitting there like, yeah, but can we just answer my question first, please? Like, this is why I'm coming to you. So if you explain it in ways like that, consumers immediately get it, and they're screaming for this. And it's so much easier to serve a very wide range of people with an advice-only model too, instead of being limited to just the top, I don't know, 2 or 3% of people. You can work with like 99% of people, probably, at least in some capacity, on an advice-only model. So,
yes, very much so. And I strongly agree with that. Is one of the reasons why I decided to go advice only, because that idea of a qualified lead of a person with $500,000 in investable assets that's not in a workplace plan, and that person is the only feasible way to make money. I'm not saying that that's what everybody's saying, but there's kind of a general belief that we're acting that way in the way that the industry has gone towards investment management and kind of going all in, like you said, when there might just be one leaky pipe. And there's a lot of people that don't qualify under that given model. So how are we going to help those people? And that would bring me to a question of what do you say to advisors that are maybe considering it or just cannot fathom how you would possibly run a business this way when they're so used to doing it the opposite way, which is ongoing clients, ongoing investment management, and wrap fees and things like that?
Yeah, I think the way you help them understand is going to depend on what's most important to them and what they already come to you understanding or what they're curious or skeptical about, right? It's not the same approach that's going to work for everybody. So some directions you can go might be just pointing to other examples of people who are doing this successfully and show them, hey, you don't have to take my word for it. Look at these other people in firms who are already been doing this for years. So that can work. Or you can just sort of appeal to the reasons why they got into this career field in the first place. Not many people get into this career field just because they care about making a lot of money. You can make a lot of money in this field, and it is an important reason, but few people get into it just for that reason. There are lots of ways to make money. Maybe another approach could be the ethical approach and say, just hammer on that idea that if they think this is the right thing to do from the client's perspective, just remind them of that. And another way is to just show them with math, like just talk them through and help them see, okay, if you're working with this many people per week and you charge this many dollars per hour and you keep your expenses at this level, then this is the amount you're going to make. And you show them it's not really different than any other service-based business out there, right? Accountants do this, and attorneys and plumbers and so many other services. There's no reason why we can't do it that way.
Right. I think what that points out is a shift in mindset where we have come to this place that we feel that a person needs consistent, ongoing, ever-present monitoring, advice, financial planning, help. Like you mentioned, to the example of the leaky pipe, right? That it must be ongoing and pervasive, and that every person needs to have it at all times. But that's not usually how people reach out or think about coming to a financial advisor. It's life driven. It depends on what the need is. Most of the times when we meet with a new client, it's because there's an inheritance. Somebody passed away. A big life decision is in front of them. They've got a particular need, and attorneys do it, accountants do it, even specialized doctors do it. We're used to thinking of healthcare as, well, we all need to go to the doctor, but that's not actually how we often operate. We might have a primary care doctor, but when do we think of going to the doctor? It's when we're sick or when we have a specific question, something that's really on our minds. If you're a dermatologist, very few people just go to a dermatologist to have a relationship. Like, it's because something actually came up, and that's why they needed a specialist to be able to look at it. So I very much agree with you.
There is still tremendous value in our version of preventive medicine, right? So
Sure.
if we have a proactive service model where over the course of a year, we're covering this, and this topic area for a client to prevent problems or to maximize opportunities that wouldn't have otherwise been recognized, that is still tremendously important.
Yes.
But you can do that on a device-only model too. You don't, because you're doing that doesn't mean that you have to be managing their investments if the client doesn't also want that kind of service.
Right. Which also, it's not just a person's qualified lead status of their assets or things. I think it also sometimes excludes the way certain people like to work. A joke that I make to other advisors who aren't sure about how I do a model is that I help people with trust issues.
Yeah.
The joke there being because they want to see the step-by-step process. They want the show your work, or that they're very much do-it-yourselfers, and they kind of want a personal professor looking over their shoulder to make sure that nothing went wrong, but they still want to have an active part in that process. And for most of the industry, that's not usually how they work. Usually they're expecting somebody to come to them and give them the best advice or handle a solution for them. So as we wrap up, I'd love to ask you your own goal with the firm, Advice Only, as the brand, the category. What would you love to see happen with it over the next 10 years when you're talking to future Steven and seeing the success that he's made out of it? What do you hope that he's sending back?
I'm not sure I have a good answer for that because it's not entirely within my control. I think I want to focus on the things that are within my control, which are doing the best that I can to support our advisors who join this, both now and in the future, and making sure that I'm giving them everything that they need to be able to take great care of their clients and to build satisfying, successful careers here. And sometimes it's really hard to know exactly what form things are going to take in terms of like what services we're going to offer or how we're going to be operating things internally. And it's really hard to know how many people we're going to have. If we have 20 advisors 10 years from now, or if we have 2,000, I have no idea what that's going to be.
Yeah.
All I know is that I'm interested in trying it out. I'm curious, and I think it's going to work. I want to do everything I can within my power to make sure that it works and learn and change along the way and try and do the right thing. But I have no idea what the outcome is going to be. And I'm okay with that. That's part of what makes this fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think more people need to be willing to approach things with that kind of attitude. So I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I'm just going to keep taking it one step at a time and trying the best I can. And as for the movement as a whole, I think it's way beyond me and our firm. It's inevitable. It's a giant freight train coming down the tracks. This change is happening, led mainly by consumer demand for it. and by growing feasibility on the advisor side of being able to provide service in that way. And that comes from all kinds of fronts, of having better tech to enable this type of model, to even something as simple as like billing systems existing now, right?
Yes, yeah.
It's a billing system that didn't really exist in as good a form just a few years ago. There are so many things that are creating tailwinds for us in better consumer education, more and more examples to look to over time as more people shift in this direction. So I think it's only going to help us. I'm pretty optimistic about the future of advice-only models broadly. It's
That's
happening.
awesome. That's awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough, Stephen. I really appreciate what you're doing, and it's been a great solution for me. And I really do believe it's going to be a great solution for a lot of people that will otherwise not have the chance to let their own skill and personality shine. I really do. And I also believe that as a category and your own brand, I think that they are going to grow quite a bit because the consumer demand is there. And like you said, I think it's your comfort level with the uncertainty and the joy of possibility of what that future could bring that makes you a qualified leader to be able to do this. So I'm really excited to see what the future will bring for it.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate that. We will find out what happens.
All right. Sounds great.